All right, guys, so before we start plugging away at HTML and CSS, I just want you to take a look at the exercise that we will be working through. I think that it will help you explore HTML if you have some context and you have a goal in mind, rather than, again, just looking at those big websites and the cheat sheets and, just all of that information. I want you to focus on something small so you can build up some skills that we will then build on in Dreamweaver on Thursday. Okay, so for the exercise, what I want you to do is I want you to get out your resume. I want you to look at the design and the layout of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to recreate its general appearance using HTML tags. And what I want you to take note of is that I want to make sure that you use a header tag, which is an H1. I want you to include a photograph, even though you would not actually use one on your resume. It'll just give you an opportunity to learn how to embed one. I want you to change your email address into a mail to link. So again, if your resume is online, you want to be able to click that link and have it open up and open up into your to be able to send an email. That's what I'm trying to say. Good God. Then you've got paragraph tags for additional information. The items underneath experience and education will likely be some kind of list. So look at unordered lists, look at definition lists, and see if one is preferable to you. And then I want you to include 3 linked images. And these are images that would take you someplace else. So in the past, students usually use social media buttons, so you can go out and find a logo for Facebook, for LinkedIn, for Instagram, whatever you think is appropriate for your resume. Again, this isn't real life. You're not, you're not seriously putting this out in the real world. This is just something so you can get some experience using these tools. Okay. So let's go to CodePen, okay? And this is what this should look like. Again, when you open it for the first time, it's going to look like this. And you're just going to come over here to start coding. Okay, you don't need to sign up. You don't need to log in. We won't be using JavaScript, so you can close that or reduce it. And then just go ahead and give yourself as much room here under HTML and CSS as possible. What I have done is I've actually already played in another window just so I have some visuals for you to look at, and just so I can copy and paste some things so I don't have to literally be typing and having you watch me type. So again, when you're thinking about your resume, I want you to break that down into pieces and parts, and thinking about what we've talked about, what you can likely use for those pieces and parts. So I mentioned that you need to use an H1 tag. Okay, an H1 tag, okay, is going to look like this. I've actually got one here at the top, H1, Jenny Cook, closing tag, H1, okay. This has been formatted, okay, so this doesn't normally look like this. I have actually styled it down here in the CSS, and you can see I've applied a color to it, I've applied a font family, font style, font size. When you utilize these without any kind of styling, okay, when you use that without any kind of styling, it's actually going to look like this, okay? And you'll see I've run through H1s down to H6s, just so you can see the variety of sizes here. And again, there's no real styling, no personality, no color. It's super basic, okay? And it's just giving you a sense of it's about this size to this size to this size to this size. Again, these are just the default tags in HTML. They don't come with much personality. So what I want you to concentrate on is just getting the content in the window, and then you can come back and apply some styling to it so it looks more like your resume, okay? So again, if I were to think about what I know so far about HTML and the fact that I have to use an H1, I'd probably go ahead and grab an H1 and bring it over. Okay, that's not what I copied. Copy. I'll come back over here and paste. All right, there we go. And you'll see my name appears. Okay. I know that an H1 is the largest header tag. So if I want to include the next piece of information and I want it to be smaller, I might think about an H3, and maybe I'll put my city and state. And I'll go ahead and close that tag. Okay, don't forget the / like I just did. Okay, and you can see what that's looking like. Okay, now these are two separate tags, so it's putting some additional space between these. So you may want to consider how you're going to lay this out so visually it looks as nice as possible. So let's say I wanted to add my street address here. Okay. I might consider adding another tag. I'll just do 123 Main Street. Okay, and you see every single time I use a new tag there, it's putting some padding and some space in between each of these elements. Okay, so for my name to the address, that might not matter so much, but my street address being so far apart from the city and state is strange. So to mitigate things like that, again, it's basic problem solving and logic. Think about testing and figuring out, okay, what happens if I just go ahead and maybe make this part of one element? All right, maybe that works. Maybe I could live with something like that. Or if you really absolutely need that to be on two separate lines, okay, you could think about putting in a break here. And that's going to force this down to the second line, but it's going to still maintain that this is part of one element. And you see the difference in the placement there. Okay, now again, this is just problem solving, and you may not have known what a break tag was. You know, you probably are sitting at home thinking, well, she's expecting me just to pull this out of thin air. I'm not. I want you to use your tools and think, okay, I need to format this. I'm not happy with the way this looks. And you can come to this cheat sheet. And again, most of these items are going to be right here for you. Okay, you see break, it inserts a line break. It's like a carriage return. Okay, and that's how that got placed. Okay, again, now I've got my name, my address. Yes, of course, you want to put in, you know, your phone number and email and things like that. But again, just focus on putting in all of your information. So let's say the next thing I want to put in is maybe the subheaders for experience and education. I need them likely to be smaller than these items. So maybe I will try an H5. And maybe I'll just tap all of that. Experience, hopefully I spelled that correctly. Okay, and you can see what that's looking like. That looks like that might be appropriate. Okay, if I wanted to start plugging in my additional information, like the employer and the city and the date and all of the details of the job, the kind of work that I did there. Again, go back to things that we've talked about and then look at your resume. What does it look like? In most cases, the experience pieces are bulleted. So that's telling you that that's a list. And again, if you come over to your cheat sheet, okay, you've got lists here. You've got an unordered list that is like a bulleted list, an ordered list, and you'll see it's going to count out numbers. And then you have a definition list, which is going to treat it like a definition. Okay, so it would be a definition list with the term, and then a definition would follow it. Okay, and it doesn't use bullets, it's just sort of indented. Just for the sake of putting something here for you to look at, I already typed out a definition list. So I'll just bring this over. Okay, and it just has some basic information in here. I just gave it, you know, my title of VCU, and I put in some information about some basic things that I do. Okay, now I was fiddling with the layout, so I need to clean that up. So I had some weird spaces in here. I had an extra tag. Okay, I'm going to get rid of a couple of these things. Clean it up. And you'll see, again, this is the kind of work that you often do in HTML, okay, there's something that doesn't belong that's making the layout look a little wonky, you come in and clean it up a little bit. But you'll see here, I'm just going to hit return to separate this. This is my definition list. Okay, I've got an opening tag and a closing tag. I've got the definition term, okay, which is adjunct faculty. And then I've got the definition here, okay? And I've got opening and closing, educate freshmen and seniors, grade projects, okay? Just super basic stuff. Okay, play with that and start to format that a little bit more. You could come in and add some additional information. So maybe for adjunct faculty, you want to have a couple of definition terms, or perhaps you actually want to space things out a little bit differently. You can use the pre-tag to accomplish that. What else can we talk about here? Let's say at this point you've got all of your information in and you just want to come in and add a little style. Okay, you're not happy with the way it looks. I'm going to grab some of this and bring it over and talk about it over in the new window. Okay, and you're going to see as I started typing all of this out in the HTML window, anything that was inherently nested, again, things that had to live within something else or were encapsulated between other tags. Again, you've got your definition list here, and then terms and definition is nested within it. You'll see that CodePen is tabbing that, indenting, that's the word I was looking for. So visually, it's just really clean and kind of easy to see all of your tags. In CSS, the layout's always a little bit different. And again, you start with a tag. It can also be, other things that we're not going to talk about today, but you'll see here very clearly I've got my H1 tag. And so anytime an H1 is used, again, this is if it was on a website with multiple pages, or here, if I use an H1 tag repeatedly, anytime that H1 tag gets used, it's going to apply this color and this font family, font style, and font size. Okay. Again, that's the beauty of keeping this super, super organized. If I always think about what I want my H1 tags to look like and where they're likely going to be used, then I can format them only once. Okay, and it'll just format it for me every single time I use an H1 tag again. Okay, same thing if I had a P tag here, which I'm not using. Again, P tags are paragraphs. Anytime a P tag would be used, you would see a font family, a font size, and a color associated with it. Up here, I added body, and you'll see that's why the background went pink. Again, and this is stuff that you can find, particularly over in W3. I'm starting to stutter here. If you get to a point where perhaps you're in the CSS, like, oh, I really wish, I could do this with my background. I'd like to see it, in a different color, or I'd like to have a picture behind it, or I'd like to do, something very, very specific. You can see if that's something that's actually available to you. You'll see here things like padding. Okay, you're probably going to get to a point where you have some weird spacing issues, particularly if we look back here again where my name and my address are not as close together as I might like them to be. I can come over here and play with padding, and you'll see there's padding for the top, the right, bottom, and left. And you can go into negatives here. So typically you'll see something like this where it's 50 pixels, 30 pixels, but you also, if you're trying to force something to go up, you can go -50, so that would be something that you could play with as well. Let's see, what else can we talk about here in terms of the type? That's about all of the things that I think you will absolutely need immediately. I will be back in a moment to talk about linking and images.